Hey, this is Spanner from the Spanner and Riggs Show. We are here for episode 8 of the Spanner and Riggs podcast. And you notice I have a little bit of a different background. I'm back in Cali, going back to Cali. Hey, on tonight's podcast, we got an interview with Nick Hulberg. We're going to break down the spring sports, girls softball and girls soccer. And we're going to talk a little hockey goat. I want to talk a little Vikings offseason draft. Should they trade? Should they not trade? Kirk Cousins. Here we go. Here we are. We're going to talk a little Vikings offseason, and we just watched them re-sign Kirk Cousins. You know, and I know Riggs has alluded to this is not the move that he wanted the Vikings to make. Didn't think it was a quality move. He was a former Redskin Commanders Washington football team quarterback at one time. What do you think? They re-signed him.
I honestly think that they got, with all the crazy movement that's been going on, they were kind of backed into a corner. The question, of course, all franchises, including the Vikings, is can you upgrade? And maybe, honestly, truth be told, we may not know that maybe they did make some calls on a few of these, wild changes. And, of course, the Deshaun Watson thing was over. But I think for the Vikings, it's the best move they can make right now. You know what? He's got continuity with Thielen and Jefferson. And, I do think that they're a team that if you put in the right mechanics, and more than anything else, Spain in the NFL, coaching means a whole lot more than probably a lot of other sports. But just maybe schematically they change things up. And if Kirk can play like above average, we know he's not probably the elite, but if he can play above average and they get some good defense, I think it's a good move for him. I think because they're backed into a hole. I think he's probably still, maybe the second best quarterback, maybe third best, but definitely second best quarterback in that division. So they can't, like I said, for them it was the best move for them that they had to make, just with how wild everything was. What were your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I how I'm not huge on paying huge quarterback salaries. Brady's won a bunch. Manning won when all those players jumped in to play with him in his last, years on a discount. But other than that, everyone's been on a rookie contract, for like the last 20 years, who's won Super Bowls other than Brady, who always takes less. He's even still takes less now, even though he's taking more than he did when he was in New England. So I don't think it's that bad because I don't think he's way up there. You have room. If they'd have traded away pieces to get Deshaun Watson, which he's got a whole bunch of issues coming with him, Russell Wilson, are they that much better? You're going to give up a bunch of pieces and Kirk Cousins to get a quarterback that to me is that much better. In this world, when you look at the 2001 Rams losing to the Patriots, Brady's first Super Bowl. And Brady was just this young guy that threw for like 130 yards or whatever, The Rams receivers got molested, crushed the whole game, all the way up and down the field. And the NFL changed the rules, illegal contact and all this stuff. And then, Belichick was actually the first one to kind of see what was going on. And they went into this just complete pass game. Then the Patriots win back-to-back Super Bowls with no rushing game whatsoever. And the world's changed that way. Andy Reid's gone that way. Everyone's gone this way, but just pass. And what I'm alluding to is I think it's a good signing. Because if they gave up Kirk Cousins and a bunch of picks and a bunch of capital, they don't have an over-the-top safety that can win in a playoff game. They still need a number one corner. They need an edge rusher. And without those pieces, what difference does it make who's at quarterback? I think they would give up too much capital. He's not anywhere near the Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and where all the new contracts are going to go. I think they have enough space to fill up that roster where they need to win the North. And if they win the North, you just got to get lucky in the playoffs, make a run, and
Yep.
and speaking of all these quarterbacks that came available, I mean, what a crazy offseason. I've never seen
Crazy.
anything like it. And to me, I think the NFL is starting to follow suit with college football. You got the
Yeah.
portal, and the players are just dictating their way out of situations. And I've never seen.
Wild.
When have you ever seen quarterbacks
Wild.
leave?
Absolutely. These big ones too. It has been
Montana goes to
yep.
Kansas City was monumental,
Yeah,
right?
one player, right?
Danny.
I mean, and yeah, the 10 times that by 10, but on like what was your for like this offseason though for especially quarterbacks, what was your biggest change that you thought was like wildest but probably maybe either the best fit or maybe the wrong fit, but what was your, give or take maybe
Russell Wilson
yeah,
to
I
Denver.
absolutely. We can't believe we
Denver
agreed
to
on
me is
something.
the only.
Yep.
Sorry, but
No, go ahead.
Denver's the only team to me that has a roster that can compete with the Rams,
Yeah,
and now they have a quarterback to match
absolutely.
the Rams. They've got. I mean, they got Patrick Surtain. They just got pieces that rookie edge that they promoted when they traded Von Miller to the Rams.
Yeah.
That guy is another monster too.
Yeah.
They're
Bills. Oof.
I see them being very, very tough to beat in the AFC.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was a weird trade by the Dolphins for Tyreek Hill. I thought that
Yeah.
was a
That was
little.
crazy.
I mean, you're bordering on Herschel Walker trade there.
Oof. And
You
then
know,
and to pay him like whatever the extension it is, whatever all that stuff that goes with it. For me, I agree with you on the Russell Wilson. The two that kind of stand out to me that are kind of, I don't know what you want to call them, wild cards. Number one, of course, is the whole Deshaun Watson thing. I mean, we have to figure out, what's going on there. Like, I mean, suspensions and all the litigated lawsuits. But aside from that, just from football, I think that might be a fit because I think the Browns are good. It's just now they've taken a quarterback that could probably take them over the top. The other one that not a whole lot of talk is, and I'm very interested is Matt Ryan to the Colts. And everybody's been dogging on Matt Ryan, and just maybe because how the Falcons have played the last year or so, or whatever. But his stats weren't horrible. But if he can kind
talk
of
about
do
Super Bowl slump.
Matthew Stafford go up, like he played elite this year, can Matt Ryan do that with arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL? And so those are my two, like I said, wild card. But I mean, what for you? What would be your two kind of interesting moves that one or two that you think are going to be like kind of wait and see type of attitudes?
I like Carson Wentz. I think he's really good. I thought that was a good move by Washington, but they absolutely have to add another wide receiver.
Talk to the ever.
You got McLaurin,
They got
and
to
there's a
re-sign him too.
massive gap between your first receiver and then
Yes.
anything else that's running routes.
Yes.
And but I thought that was a good move. And look, I've said it already on this show. I'm a North Dakota guy. I like Carson Wentz. So I didn't like the Deshaun Watson trade. Baker Mayfield was hurt the whole year.
Yeah.
I just I mean I don't know how much better you got. I agree. I think Cleveland's got a very good team, but I don't know what the dynamic is in the locker room. I mean, if Baker lost the locker room, does it really matter if he was hurt?
Yeah,
You know
that's a
what I
good
mean?
point. Very good point, though.
I did see a great joke
Oh
online
boy.
that said we need to send Baker Mayfield over to Kiev because he's the only one that can overthrow Russia.
Yeah, I did see that too as well. Well, and honestly,
So
in that trade
that was
specifically,
funny.
and honestly, truth be told, the biggest intrigue of that too is if they can offload Baker and get some of that draft capital back in some form. They might be somewhat closer to that because I mean, obviously they traded everything for him and name what to Houston. But if they can be able to trade him off to be able to get some of that draft capital back, that could be a game changer in that whole dynamic. But it's really going to be an interesting. But it is a wild offseason. I'm like, but for me, like you said, for Carson Wentz, I feel like it's definitely an upgrade. I mean, as much as people were dogging what he did in the last 3 games for the Colts, he's still an upgrade over. I love Taylor Heineke, but he's not going to get us over the edge. But like you said, they need another wide receiver. Absolutely, it was nice to see Ron Rivera hanging out at Ohio State's pro day and talking to a few of these couple guys. They said receivers and stuff like that. But what about your Cowboys? Just kind of feels like they've been kind of quiet, but honestly,
Always.
but that's good.
They're always
too.
quiet. Always quiet.
But that's okay though. You don't sometimes want your teams, making these wild rush changes and just and honestly,
it's an interesting thing because I was going to ask you a question. Sorry.
No.
Interesting thing. I was going to ask you a question about it. And it is more about that's the Cowboys' philosophy: stay quiet. They do their thing. But let's get back to the Vikings.
Okay.
So in the draft, do they sit tight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they sit tight, or do they trade up to get a playmaker? To me, the Vikings have to trade their first round pick.
Really?
This is what I'll say. Yep. I'll tell you why I say that. And there's two ways you can go. You can go the Belichick way, which has been proven, right? Or you can go the Rams way. But the Rams right now have basically said, look, we'll give up draft capital for proven playmakers, right? I think the Vikings need to trade that pick, get themselves like a Marcus Williams safety from the Saints or move up and get a playmaker like the Rams do. Or, I mean, when you're picking in the middle, you know what it's like. Oh. The Redskins have been in the middle of the draft for it seems like 20 years.
Your Cowboys are the ones that are kings of the middle of the draft. Although they both
we win the division a lot.
No. But remember, anyway, we lay an egg to get that second pick every 4 years. That's what we do.
But you know what I'm talking about. Yes. Being in the middle of the draft, they could go Belichick with all the wide receivers that all these teams need right now, right? They have like one of the best 1-2 punches in the league at wide receiver. They could trade back and get extra picks and try to hit some home runs and hit, and fill out more needs. But honestly, right now, the Rams have kind of set the table of like draft picks are a roll of dice. We want playmakers.
Yeah.
Not just good players, playmakers. Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Aaron Donald. I mean,
absolutely.
The Aaron Donald it's a good one because that year Dallas picked right after the Rams and they drafted Zach Martin. Dallas on their board had Aaron Donald number 1 and Zach Martin number 2. And both those guys fell all the way down, and the Dallas didn't have to trade up to get either one of them because they just fell down. The Rams took Donald and Dallas took Martin, and it's been I feel good. When you want your team to have a good draft analysis, but I don't know. Crazy off season. I think the Vikings did well to secure a quarterback at a decent rate, but they've got some holes. They got the 3 most important holes on defense to get off the field, and they need interior offensive line.
Oof.
And
hard to find.
They allowed too much push up the middle last year with their running game and those wide receivers. If they can hold water a little bit there, they're going to get those 29, 32, 33-point games, and then they got to be able to get off the field.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be. This is a kind of a little bit of a turning point in some respects because you do think that, the Lions will get better, but they're not there yet. The Bears, we don't know what the heck we're kind of getting out of the Bears. And then, you've got the Packers where, Aaron Rodgers is coming back and he's elite, but now, Devontae Adams is out. Now they're, having some question marks about some wide receivers. So, if
they're guaranteed to draft a wide receiver number 1.
For sure they are.
And all that does is fill in a massive hole, and it's not even going to fill that entire hole. They're not getting better. No. Minnesota could catch them.
Absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see. But we both know, like in the NFL, you don't win by signing free agents, because then the Jacksonville Jaguars would win every year just based on how many free agent signings they sign every year. You win through the draft. You got to hit some home runs. You can't honestly. It's not the home runs you hit that make you a better team. It's making sure that your misses aren't catastrophic, right? Like they say, if you miss on your first round pick, like that sets you back sometimes 3 years, right? So like you gotta hit on your first pick, and those first 3 rounds are like crucial for teams. So like your move, I agree with it in terms of the Vikings. If they can trade back and take another couple more picks into this thing and see who's hungry, especially if, nobody's picked a quarterback or those get really late to where they're at. I mean, and all of a sudden now teams that have a chance to reach up to maybe get that quarterback could be an interesting move for that too as well.
Yep. All right.
Well, we want to hear from you. We want to know what's the Vikings' thoughts on Kirk Cousins, especially. I like maybe throwing in what are your thoughts on Spainer's, maybe prediction or maybe analysis that the Vikings should probably trade back. But we want to hear from you. And that's the end of our NFL segment. And here we are with the high school segment here on the Spainer and Riggs episode. We got a very special guest, Mr. Nick Holberg, executive producer, main play-by-play guy, everything to do with Pro Style Productions. Been covering a lot of high school sports. We're excited to have him on the show. How are we doing today, Nick?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I don't know between you two here. I don't know if I'm going to get a word in edgewise. I'm excited to talk to you though, for sure.
Absolutely. No, hey, the last probably 3 weeks have been absolutely wild in high school sports, and Pro Style Production has literally been there every step of the way, either through the regional tournaments on the Class A, Class B side, and then of course Class A state championships, and then doing stuff with Class B with all of your platforms. What's been the exciting part for you in the last probably couple weeks? Has there been a certain tournament area, either you calling it or just being a part of Pro Style Production with one of your play-by-play guys?
I think the most interesting piece to the whole thing for me is just watching the expansion of our mission, which is to promote high school athletes and the work that they put into these sports that they play. Over the course of the last 90 days, we've reached 100,000 unique viewers, and we've had close to 500,000 views on our content, which is just great for the kids and the promotion of these athletes. So I think that's pretty neat. And then the other piece of it is just being involved in the competition, being a sports guy and a play-by-play guy for all these years. I love it. Tournament time, there's nothing better than watching playoff anything, and being there in the front row for it has been, on a personal level, pretty darn neat. It's been a lot of fun.
Hey, so tell us, State B, Ryan gives a unbelievable effort to try to dethrone Kindred, the defending champs, in that semifinal, but Ryan's got everyone back, and then they have the Walls kid, that freshman, who just, he almost carried him on his back in that game. They were with the length of Kindred. Tell me, what do you think about Ryan? And maybe they have a chance, you think, next year to run it?
Yeah, I think they have a really solid chance. And I think that the biggest thing that I see with sports and certainly at the high school level is you get that experience with a younger team to get to the big dance, and it only just propels you further and further as those kids' careers continue on. And you guys both know just as well as anyone that confidence level is, 75% of everything that happens inside of the game of sports and inside the brain. And yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to be from Minot and be able to have the opportunity to call Ryan games, and course the Magi as well. But yeah, Class B basketball, Bishop Ryan Region 6 should definitely be a favorite next year without a doubt.
Now you switch over to the Class A side, and just to see how the excitement that happened with both Minot High teams winning. Of course, you obviously cover statewide stuff, and so we certainly have touched on a lot of statewide stuff, but it's pretty special, especially with your ties and being able to cover a lot of what goes on with Minot High. But what were your thoughts on the double championships for both our girls and boys?
Well, first of all, this is a funny story. So I cover the Magi and Majets all year long, right? Along with Scotty Cattell, legend voice of Minot State and Minot High sports, Region 6 sports. I cover the Magi all season long. We get to the state tournament, and I have a contract. PSP Network has a contract with the Minot Hockey Boosters to broadcast whatever state tournament is at the Pepsi rink at Mesa Arena. This year, that state tournament was a 15U girls hockey tournament. So when Minot High was winning dual state championships, I was actually calling West Fargo and Fargo Pee-wee girls hockey at the Mesa Arena, sitting there like a tiger in a cage going, you got to be kidding me. I'm missing out on the most magical night ever for Minot High basketball. So from a personal level, that's where I was at. I was locked in listening on PSP Network to Todd Domries and Chuck Claremont down in Bismarck. And man, I'm not going to lie. I got home from that from that Pee Wee hockey tournament, and I turned it on TV and was listening on PSP Network, and there was a moment where they panned over and showed Jason Schwartz, the head coach of the Majets, standing there with the magician crowd, and in the student section. And I'm not gonna lie, I was sitting in my living room and I had tears running down my face. I was like, this is pretty special. I mean, it just is something that when they break a streak the way that they did, and against the team that they did it against, talking about the Majets and Century now, of course, but that was so magical. And then Minot High getting back to the big dance on the boys' side, and slam dunk, Double D, and Wentz and the whole crew. I mean, it was just a fantastic all around run, and what a prime time to be a fan of the maroon and gold, without a doubt.
What did you think of Maggie Fricky? I mean, basically single-handedly just dribbling through the press of Century over and over and over as an 8th grader. And I just thought she was going to run out of gas, and she just kept like speed dribbling through and getting them up the court and then pulling back to the midcourt line and then setting up the offense for them. But I mean, she did it like 35 times or something in that game.
Yeah, I mean, for me to sit here and say that I'm beyond impressed would be an understatement. I mean, I think about what I was doing in 8th grade, and it was watching South Park and sitting on the couch eating a bag of Cheetos every Wednesday night when Comedy Central had that on, and here she's winning state titles. I mean, it's more than impressive. I think the sky's the limit for her and that whole team. I think everybody should buckle up with her coming back and that whole group, because we've got a dynasty forming here in the Magic City, and I think that you can stamp that one guaranteed.
Absolutely. Now walk us through here, in the last probably year or so. I mean, there's no secret, I've known Nick for a long time, and certainly a heart for hockey was his big thing, and now it's really evolved. Coverage of Class B, Class A basketball, and big thing for you too, man, is you've been able to partner with some really good play-by-play guys down in Bismarck, and then obviously Scotty K here in Minot, and a few other guys. Tell us a little bit about the journey, man, and how this has kind of really evolved or morphed into a huge need that's been a big success, because it's exploded here in the last couple of years.
I think the biggest piece to all of it and the entire conversation is that we live in such a unique world. I'm sitting in the PSP offices south of Minot, about 10 miles out, wherever you guys are located. And, we're doing this remotely, and the ability for us to have a conversation and to be clear as day in HD and listen to each other in HD and have a real-time conversation is just a piece of the puzzle of the world that we're living in. And that's that digital media is the new wave, and nothing against terrestrial radio or TV over the air, anything like that. I just believe that we're moving in a direction where 98% of Americans have a smartphone in their pocket. Well, that means that we've got the ability to deliver content to them and to be able to get them the game wherever they may be. And I think that that's a really beautiful piece to this. And when this kind of evolved, we started back in 2014, and we started with doing Minot High hockey, Minot State hockey, and Toros hockey. We did a little bit of Vistas baseball that summer as well, and we had a pay-per-view model, and we did some things in a way that we didn't really catch our stride. We went back to the drawing board with it and really took a deep dive into what we're actually doing this for. And what we came up with is that, the reason that we want to do this is to promote these kids and give the kids the opportunity to have the spotlight on them and the coverage. And in doing so, we found a way to go back through and provide this content free of charge for people to watch wherever they may be. We rebranded from Pro Style Production, the parent company, if you will, to PSP Network, which was easier for people to find online by just typing in psp.network, and then having the platform where on any given night you can have 4 games that you can watch or more, depending on what's on the schedule. And, watching it evolve the way it has is really a beautiful thing for sports fans and more importantly for the athletes across the board. There's a lot here that we're very, very proud of. And I think that there's kind of like Maggie Fricky and Double D there, Derek, to set the sky's the limit for what we're looking to do as well.
So one thing that I've been told, and I know you've been told, we have something in common. We kind of say what we see, maybe approach when we're talking about things. I feel like North Dakota's the people in North Dakota are tougher people. And do you think that the way you call games and the way you see games? Do you think it's refreshing? Do you think it's good for the sport? Do you think that people that are talking about sports have gotten too soft as the years go on? And I know we're doing high school, so it's going to be scaled a little bit, but I mean, tell us about your approach to calling things.
I like that question, and it's a tiptoe through the snow kind of an answer coming here because of the world that we live in today. And I guess my answer to that would be that, Larry McFall said it best a few years back when he was interviewed by the News about our broadcasting together at that time. And basically Larry said, if it stinks, we're going to tell you it stinks. And I think that there's people that are out there. I'm fully aware that I've got fans, and I'm fully aware that there's people that probably can't stand my call as well, for that reason. But at the same time, I would say that, I pride myself in telling you how it is. And the people that in hockey, for example, the people that are the pure hockey fans and the lovers of the game and the alumni and the people around the state that, really have a good grip on it, I think appreciate that. I think maybe not everybody does at the same time, appreciate the blunt honesty. However, there is, I work on that quite often as well, though, of walking, like I said, tiptoe through the snow on making sure not to, overstep bounds and things like that. And I'm passionate about it too, though. So there's times where you'll get a raw call from me if it's a minor high game or, game that I'm passionate about. So I don't know. It's scarier the more time passes and the more we get into, the years to come, the more the scarier it becomes, I guess, to tell it how it is, I guess. And, I had a lady that emailed me during the Region 6 championship. This is a priceless story. I'm on the call at the Region 6 championship with Velva and Ryan, and just what ended up being a pretty good basketball game up at the Dome. Absolutely. And I've got all of our broadcast gear set up, and right next to the our broadcast laptop is a laptop that we use to monitor to make sure the game's going well and on the air. Well, that also has our Facebook on it. And a woman reached out and said, right in the middle of the broadcast, this message pops up right on the screen, and it said, "These announcers are terrible. They need to be fired immediately. They're just embarrassing." And I read it as it's live, and I'm like, man, we don't have any other games on tonight. She's talking about me. What is this? So I think that's the other piece to it, though, guys, is where you look at it is, in this day and age, the biggest piece to that is that, hey, it's recorded. It's there for live replay where people can go back and watch it, which is different than anything in the past. And also the ability where, hey, if I don't like what you guys are doing, I can find your name and address and show up at your front door if I want to too, which is just a crazy time we live in. So yeah, I like the question, and the answer there again is just, I call it how I see it. And if you don't like it, then you're invited to watch somewhere else, I guess. And that's not trying to be rude, but we're doing it the best we can.
I got one more question, unless you got one afterward too, Spainer. But my biggest thing is, what's next now? I mean, we've gone through the heart of the high school season. You had hockey, it wrapped up, and you guys covered, West Region hockey and then the state championship, and then of course the basketball side. What's next for PSP? I mean, it seems like you guys are morphing and will call just about anything if there's an audience, and of course your partners are partnering for you. But what's the next 2 to 3 months schedule look like for the PSP network?
After 15 tournaments in the last 5 weeks, the first thing that was up on deck was me taking a couple days to go visit my wife and little guy that I basically didn't see for all that time. So I took a few days off, more like 5 days off, and now we look forward to a little bit of baseball. We'll get into baseball and girls softball as well. That schedule won't be as aggressive as our basketball and hockey schedule. We mixed swimming in this year. We mixed wrestling in this year. We worked at a pretty fast clip this year. We had football and volleyball on as well, and boys and girls hockey also. So yeah, we're looking forward to a little bit of baseball, a little bit of softball. I'm big into the dirt track racing world, so I'll be announcing dirt track at Nodak Speedway again this summer for Darn TV. I'll be on the mod tour and on the Tougher Than Dirt tour, I do believe, traveling around the state for those big prestigious dirt track events. And other than that, we'll be putting our pen to the paper and making a game plan for next year and putting together a broadcast schedule that hopefully again is the same, if not more games next year for the kids to have showcased online.
Absolutely.
So you brought in Scotty K, the Hall of Famer. The longtime voice of the Beavers, and tell us a little bit about Scotty. He's a great dude. Him and I are really good friends.
Scotty K is a absolute legend, and there'll be a day that Scotty retires, and there'll be a day that I write a book, and there will be a whole chapter on the stories with my experiences with Scotty K. And I promise that everybody will be laughing from left to right, falling out of their chair on some of the experiences I've had with that guy in the amount of time that I've been able to work with him at PSP Network. I've known him for a long time. I give him all the credit in the world and all the respect in the world. There's nobody that has more passion for this. There's nobody that has more love for the games and for the kids. And Scotty's actually the one that, over all those years, I always used to say to Scotty K, I'd always used to say to him, Scotty, you're a Hall of Famer. It's time for you to get into the Sportscasters Hall of Fame. And he would always say to me, it's for the kids. It's for the kids. And that's kind of where our mission statement came from, was doing this for the kids and nobody else. And, Scott really deserves a lot of credit. He's not a spring chicken anymore. And man, we ran him wild here over tournament time. He was a part of a lot of those games and a lot of those calls and traveling all over the place. So yeah, a lot of credit to Scotty. I do have to say that Scotty whooped my tail last year in a couple rounds of golf, so I'm excited to get back out on the club here. That he can stroke it.
Good deal.
And we'll be looking forward to seeing if we can take him down on the golf course this year. But yeah, great guy overall, and couldn't be happier that he's a part of what we're doing.
Absolutely.
So I put up a post on TikTok, and I said basically, I say that North Dakota Class A boys and girls, North Dakota Class B boys and girls would go to South Dakota and sweep them out. You think I'm way off?
Look, man, I'm not gonna lie. Ask me about Red River Minot High hockey next year. I'll give you a better answer on that one. I'm not exactly sure if I am the guy to. You'd think that being a part of 200 basketball games this year, I know that answer, but I'd like to think that you're right. I mean, I think that, you put your starting five on the floor that comes out of North Dakota, man, my goodness, there's some players on both boys and girls sides of basketball that are more than impressive. So I'd like to say that you're right. Yeah. I guess I don't know that answer.
I just think it'd be hard. I think it'd be hard to find a Class B team that could beat the Kindred girls. And they won every game by almost 40 points. And, they beat a Grafton team whose best players foregoing their senior year to go to South Dakota, who just eliminated Baylor. And they beat them by 24 in the state championship game. Then you look at, 4 wins. I mean, they basically have Tony Parker, a left-handed Tony Parker playing with Jacoby Pearson. I mean, I don't know. I got beat down by the Desmond. They said there's no chance they could beat Desmond in South Dakota. So I just wanted your take on that. But I like North Dakota. I fight for North Dakota. I'm North Dakota's perspective, obviously Spanner and Riggs, and I like to say it's true.
I say we put it together. I say we get let's get a little AAU basketball going here and see what we can do. Let's
put it on the PSP network. We'll definitely do that too.
That's right.
I love that idea. I'm in. Absolutely. I'm in for it.
Absolutely. Well, good. Well, hey, Nick, we want to thank you for coming up on our podcast. And like I said, a big shout out to what you've done. And the other side of this thing, which is unintended benefits, is that there's a lot of extra eyes and ability for scouts to be able to watch these games. Historically, basketball games are in some gyms that have zero coverage, and same with the hockey world. And being able to have a camera and being able to broadcast it benefits those athletes, and so it certainly benefits them. But kudos to you, man. It's been awesome to see you expand and give it the coverage and everything that it deserves, and it's all a testament to your hard work, man. So we appreciate all you're doing for high school athletics, and thanks for coming on our episode.
I appreciate you guys so much. And about that first comment, I just have to tell you, I don't know where that came from, the get a word in edgewise thing. You guys just let me talk, and I probably talk too much. So thanks for having me. Hey, I love what you guys are doing as well.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick.
You bet.
All right, and great interview with Nick. We appreciate him. And boy, I tell you, that's been an exciting time of what's going on at PSP Network. Now we're going to switch into spring sports here. We're going to talk a little bit about girls soccer and girls softball. The springtime is here. The weather's been heating up here in Minot. I'm certainly excited to be getting outside. I got a little girl who loves to play those sports as well. But Spainer, what are your thoughts on girls soccer? Boy, a lot of expectations, Minot High specifically, but I know everybody knows Spainer knows his soccer, especially girls soccer in our area. But what are you looking forward to, and what are your kind of your keys and excitement, and maybe some stuff that we may not be knowing, but what are you looking forward to here for girls soccer here in the spring?
Well, Minot is, they're the defending state champs. They won the state championship by the largest margin in North Dakota history. They're definitely the favorite. The West's got to come up. The East goes 3-1 every year, where Minot gets a win, and then the East gets 3 wins. So Mandan is definitely better. There's little chit chat on the TikTok there where Mandan's guaranteeing they're going to beat Minot. And Minot chipping back. So that'll be an interesting game. April 8th at Minot. So that's coming very soon. You got Davies and Shanley and those guys in the East, and Fargo's had some issues with clubs splitting, and that the kids are splitting, and that's probably affected them a little bit. If you've got 18, 14-year-olds that are playing on this team, and 12 go to one club and 6 go to another club, and has that affected the level of play now? Are they going to lower tournaments in Minnesota? I don't know. I haven't heard a lot about how that's gone. I think most of the older girls have stayed together. So that'll be interesting. I see it playing out. Mandan has a chance, I think, to get a second West win at state, possibly. BHS is going to be better. And they got the Reese girl going to UND, and then they have this really good freshman named Addie Massey, and she's
At
really
BHS?
good. Yeah, I mean, like one of the top players in North Dakota, really good. And the Bismarck high schools don't let them play early on as 7th and 8th graders like Minot does. It's school policy.
Wow.
So and she's right there in that same level of the Emerson Perrin and Macy Burke, those kids that have been dominating the state tournament the last 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sophomores, there's some good kids out west. There's some good kids out east, but I think this year it's gonna be much of the same. I think you're gonna see 3 East teams, and then we're gonna see, I think Minot will be the best team, but they always have one scary game at state. In this last year, Emerson Perrin scored the goal, and she was a freshman, and they win 1-0. And then they go on, obviously, to win the state championship. And they got through that game this time, pressure's off, and they just smashed through in the state championship. So that, to me, that's the thing. Does Minot survive that scary game? And I've watched them play this off season in the tournaments, and they just smoke through everyone in the in the club events. So the question is well, how that roll out, when it gets tight,
Do you I mean, of course, the big talk here in Minot is the addition of a new high school. Do you think, especially specifically in women's sports, do you think that, Minot High soccer will be able to, absorb another team, and are they going to be, have a chance to compete with 2 teams in the city here? Or do you think there's going to be a little, pushback from the elite play that we've seen here, for the last few years here for Minot High? But what's your perspective? This is going to be a drastic change for everybody, right?
It's interesting. I think that Minot next year, if they had a freshman team for the Minot North or whatever they'd be called, I think that team with freshmen would finish top 4 in the West.
No way. Oof. That's unbelievable.
So the 09 birth year girls in Minot are really athletic and really good. the 2010, actually I should rewind that, the 08.
Okay.
And then there's like on that team, there's 09s that are just like really good.
That's absolutely
and
crazy.
then the 2010 group, okay, has 4 teams in one birth year in Minot. 4. They went to Frosty's Cup in Bismarck, which had all the Fargo teams, and it had South Dakota teams, and it had the Bismarck teams. They put 2 of them in the U13 division and 2 of them in the U12 division. And the 13s played the 2. This is the 12s for Minot in the 13s division met in the championship. And the 12s for Minot in the 12s division both met in the championship.
Jeez.
And that's the 2010 birth year girls. My daughter's in that group as well. So I haven't looked at the 11s and whatnot, but I just tell you that like on the girls side in Minot, it is a machine that's rolling right now. And there's a lot of good players. But I mean, when I say good teams, like those 08 girls, I mean, they travel out of state and they win out of state. They're not just beating teams around North Dakota, so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
Do you think that's been just part of the? I think we've talked about it on other episodes about how the Minot Youth Soccer Association is really, I mean, for starters, has expanded greatly with their numbers, but just kind of maybe more structure and more involvement, or is it just sheer convincing athletes to want to play soccer and then they develop? Because like, I mean, I remember like when you started those indoor cups way back when, you had a whole bunch of teams, and now it's exploded. I see, like, I'm on their Facebook page and I see boys and stuff. I mean, that has to do a lot with it for their success, right? I mean, that's got to be a big part of it, is just being able to get more kids involved, more kids motivated, and then get athletes who may not play soccer, getting them to play at an early age, and then they fall in love with the sport and it grows. I mean, what is that part of the big success with the depth, especially here?
There's a lot of kids playing. A lot of it focuses on having fun. One thing that I always tried to get them to do was, to solve problems when they were little. So you see these Burt kids and Perrins and Aaron Oster and, I would put parameters on the kids before we go to a weekend tournament about play. Every kid's going to get X amount of playing time. We didn't punt balls. We made them bowl them out. So all the players had to touch the ball moving up the field. Not just kick it to one, to Macy Burke or, Malia Burke or whatever. Mm-hmm. You could just punt it down the field to one player, especially on the little fields, when you're younger.
Yeah.
You win games all day, right? But there's 2 parts to, and I alluded to this in the Kelly Armstrong interview last week, but we stuck to the parameters while coaching the game. We didn't veer from it. No matter what the score was, the kids got in while the result was still in doubt. Didn't matter where we were at. No punting. We won the state championship with the girls that are seniors now, all that whole group that signed. We were at regionals in Chicago, and I didn't let them punt. We were playing Ohio's champion, Michigan's champion, Minnesota's champion, and we forced them to bowl it out, and we lost. But the second part to it that people forget, because I feel like youth coaches are all development, no winning, or all winning and no development.
Hockey's the same way, which is awful.
Yeah, it's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
We put, and I think like all development is a problem too.
Mm-hmm. It is,
so
for sure. It is.
We put the parameters on the coach. The parameters are on the coach, not the players. You're going to play a certain way. And then when the game starts, you live within the parameters, but you fight, claw, and scratch to win.
Yeah.
You should teach the kids to want to win. And that's one thing that I really pushed into the Minot girls, because I would coach the 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-olds, like, or whatever, year after year after year. But you got to try to win. But we didn't just start punting the ball if we were losing 2-0 to Aberdeen or Sioux Falls or something. We stuck with the game plan.
Yeah.
But I do think that has a big impact on it. Minot soccer. I brought in a lot of people, Zoe Fisher and Ellen Jebbins, and man, they just do a good job, man. They do. I mean, they do a really good job of bringing kids in and making sure they have a great experience. Zoe Fisher does such a fantastic job of making sure those little kids have a great experience, and that just goes a long way.
Absolutely. Now we'll switch gears here to women's softball or girls softball. My first take is, excellent being able to, big shout out to Thor Nelson, who was really kind of driving the bus in terms of that, but to get that artificial turf, in those fields, which, we know how it is here. The winter takes forever to melt and then the rains kill the fields, but having that artificial turf has been really good. But what's your thoughts on girls fast pitch softball, which again is another growing sport? This last summer, I think they had 70 youth teams, here in Minot, which is fantastic. And people don't understand the economic impact of what youth sports mean to these things. But take on women's fast pitch and, softball as they get ready to go here this season.
Well, I'll say this. If you want your team to have a great season, the off season matters more than the regular season. And the head coach of whatever school we're talking about needs to roll their sleeves up, connect with the community, coaches, and get a youth program, just like Minot High soccer, right? If you don't have a youth program, you're not going to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Dickinson, it's in their DNA, and that's a school that we've said, like, are they Class A, are they Class B, are they Class A? They're one of the smallest Class A's, but they win the state championship 10-0. They're going to be a force again. They're just going to be a force again. Minot has certainly gotten better at, over these this last 10 years or whatnot. You look at the Class B. Central Cass is probably your favorite. They've won the last 3. Would be the last 4 probably if the COVID year hadn't canceled 2020. But it's hard to pick them because they got to get through Kindred, and Kindred's won 2 state championships right before that. And then obviously they got Dusher, who's going to Alabama. So it's just like Class B basketball, right? That Region 1 is just going to be a gauntlet to get through. Absolutely. I don't know. Softball is interesting with the West playing for the state championship. That kind of bucks the trend in a lot of sports, right? Where the East kind of dominates. So interesting that Class B, the East dominating softball, Class A, the West kind of a little bit better.
Huge.
And I think it just comes back to youth programs.
That's really what it is. Like you said, Dickinson, you think about, when we talked about Dickinson softball and obviously Dickinson gymnastics, and it's remarkable because you think about every other sport. Especially on the boys' side, the domination of basically size of your school, and chances are you're going to be having a great opportunity. But that's remarkable. And like you said, it has to do with, grassroots and growing your initial base of these kids. And like you said, training in the off season is critical. Being able to, hit balls when you're off season and pitching and all that stuff is critical, especially in girls sports. And then, like you said, getting ready because it's such long winters and preparing for
it. I think there's got to be, you want to be successful in high school sports. I don't think you have to play one sport. You could play 3 sports. Mm-hmm. You certainly have to put some time in to shooting baskets or striking soccer balls or hitting softballs and baseballs and whatnot. You have to put your time in, but I don't mind 3 sports. I think 3 sports are, and I played 3 sports. I think competing, and it gets back to that thing I was talking about with, we all development, or we all winning. And, and sometimes when players play one sport, there's no culminating event, nothing you're building toward. When you play 3 sports, you have like these culminating events you keep building toward. So you have your development, and then you have your event, which you're going all in on. Then you have your development, you have your event, which you're going all in on. I think those 3 sport athletes get that balance of winning and development, and then they just use a lot of different muscles. They get hurt less, than athletes who use the same muscles over and over.
Avoid the burnout. You get sick and tired, or you get tired, and then you don't want to play anything, or at all, or you get so focused on one sport that all of a sudden your mental, I mean, that's a big part of it now. Mental, being able to be able to diversify your mental game. I mean, that's why you're talking to all these sports psychologists about, even in hockey's the worst. It is absolutely one of the worst. I mean, it is crazy how I'm talking to parents and they go, if their regular seasons have ended here in March and the next weekend they're already in a tournament in Minnesota. And it's like, boy, that's I get worried, I get nervous. I mean, I get nervous because hockey is a very team-driven sport with a lot of adversity that you only get when you have to persevere on your own. And you get that through playing other sports, playing golf, playing tennis. I mean, even baseball and, being able to play one-on-one in terms of like some of that stuff. So it's critical, man. So
I'll tell you this.
I sing the same song with you on multi-sport athletes, 100%. Especially my best hockey players, the best, have played other sports, hands down. And they're the best leaders too.
I'll tell you, I learned something. Sharks guy, right?
Yep.
The Sharks are an 8 seed, and they knock off the Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember.
Oh,
or
Archer
whatnot.
Gervais, was he the goalie that year? The funny gear, funny gear and stuff. Yeah. From
and they get to the Western Conference Finals, which I don't think it was called that back then.
They had Wales, Camels and Wales, the Prince of Wales and the Campbell Trophy. Yeah. Boy, you're pretty good, Spainer. Not bad, not bad. I'm impressed.
They're in overtime in Game 6, and if they win, they go to the Stanley Cup Finals, man. And it's overtime, and they come in, and this guy, the puck gets free, and I mean, and they're getting dominated, right? But it's like 3-3 or whatever, and he smashes the puck off the post. And then they go on to lose Game 6, and then they go on to lose Game 7, and I thought, man, like there's a lot of luck involved in hockey, and I'm not ripping on hockey. I'm leading to a point. You can be really good, and the puck bounce against you in that sport, and you can lose. So when you say it's a team thing, like bad things can bounce. You can get bad puck bounce, and all of a sudden you're lose, and you got to get a whole group of guys. You got about 3.5 lines, right? So you got line 1, line 2, line 3, and then kind of a line 4 that goes whatever so often, right?
Absolutely.
You can't have people thinking the world's against us, all those thoughts that get in your head, the ghosts are coming out, whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's one thing I do respect about hockey. You got to overcome a lot
for sure
of unluckiness that can happen in that sport.
Absolutely. And it's a lot of adversity, mental adversity. But I know at a younger age though, I mean, I am 100%, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. Like I said when we started talking about this as a coach of, 11 years of college athletes, my best athletes, my best players, the ones that were on my championship teams, boy, they could play a lot of sports, and they played a lot of sports in high school. I mean, even in Canada with my Canadians, we played a lot of men's volleyball were another big part of it. Track and field, guys that were able to do it. And those ones were usually, like I said, they were wearing letters, on their jerseys as captains. And so I'm a huge proponent of it, in terms of that stuff. And I think, like you said, kind of leads back to this high school stuff about how, they need to work hard in terms of, in the off season, which could lead to better dividends.
Yeah, if I had to guess, my guess would be Central Cass in Class B. I think it's hard to pick Dickinson in A. I think Dickinson's probably the favorite, but Class A, you're going to have a lot of talent coming out of the East, and I think that's going to be interesting. I want to get out and see everybody.
Absolutely.
Central Cass has a program so it's in the DNA.
Yep. Well, good. Hey, we're excited. We want to know. We want to hear what your talks are. Of course, I absolutely love it when the haters are hating on Spainer for his picks in terms of what he's got for both girls soccer, girls fast pitch. We want to hear from you. What are your predictions? Who do you think? And maybe there's a couple dark horses we want to know that we aren't getting the big press, but we want to know who you guys think are going to rising up here in spring sports.
Hey, here we are with the GOAT Talk, and we are in Riggs' wheelhouse. We're doing the GOAT of hockey. So, and I'm going to throw you a curveball today, Riggs.
Okay.
So, and this might be a little pre your time, but we're going to want you to touch base on it. And you might
Okay.
have some knowledge of it. It's up
Okay.
to you. But we do have Gordie Howe. We got the great one, Wayne Gretzky.
Yep.
We got the new guys, Sidney Crosby.
Yep.
The Mario Lemieux. You got to mention the greatest video game athlete of all time, Chris Chelios, right?
Oh, I tell you, yeah, absolutely. Boy, he was hard nosed though.
So,
Oh.
tell me in your thoughts, and I'm going to throw you a curveball in a second, but give me your thoughts here. Who's the greatest hockey player of all time?
It's I tell you, the game of hockey certainly has evolved. I think in the actual strategy of how the game is, where pre 1995, I mean, goaltenders were average at best, and you could score at will, and you can see the records and scoring statistics where 200 points a season was going to lead you to the NHL, and now getting 120 points is barely a grind in terms of it. It's a huge debate. I mean, everybody loves, Wayne Gretzky with his records and all the success that he had with the Edmonton Oilers in kind of the 80s, and couldn't replicate it with the Kings. And then, of course, Gordie Howe and his records and those type of things. And then you've got the new age couple players here of recent, of course, with Sidney Crosby, who has been, I mean, if he had some health issues, which kind of derailed him a little bit. And then, of course, you got Alex Ovechkin. Man, I tell you, he has a legitimate shot to actually beat one of Wayne Gretzky's records. They're talking about goals. John Buccigross on ESPN is like, he needs to average 40 goals here for the next, three more seasons if he can get it done. And I honestly think that might be a chance to break one of Wayne Gretzky's records, especially with this modern era, and of course 2 lockouts and a COVID year. But there's no beating the GOAT Wayne Gretzky. I mean, the greatest hockey player of all time. He was able to do it both individually and then, of course, a team to get it done. And then he did it internationally with some Olympics. So, I mean, he certainly is the GOAT. But, man, there's a good debate over, the modern era stuff and the statistics being skewed. And we've talked about this on other sports. But, man, I could see if Ovechkin can break Gretzky's goals record, woof. That's going to be a lot of put some lot of spice on future debates for sure.
Well, here's the deal. I was a Babe Ruth guy, and I was the Jordan
Yeah.
guy, right? And I go, so you think I'd be Gretzky,
Yeah.
but I'm going to throw you 2 curveballs. But first off, I'm going to say one thing. In 1992, 7 out of 8 hockey players were from Canada in the NHL.
Crazy. That's a crazy
There were
statistic.
there's less people in Canada than in California.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I'm leading to something.
Okay.
Was hockey, like some sports, like the NFL it just wasn't very good in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Brown's running for all over everybody, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, you got the merger and the Steelers and the NFL's top dog, right?
Yeah.
Is what Ovechkin's doing with a much more competitive NHL, is he better than Gretzky in what I think is a weaker NHL years when you didn't have any Americans and I'm getting to the next one.
Oh, but I'm waiting for this.
The Iron Curtain had not been lifted.
Yep.
Is Boris Mikhailov from Russia that led that Russia 20-year unbeaten streak, 500 and some goals, 428 goals in 572 games. Is he better? I mean, he dominated the NHL All-Stars year after year in the Challenge Cup, and he looked like a man among boys dribbling through them. Is he better than Gretzky? Or does Gretzky get better than him, or is he just eliminated because we just never got to see him?
Yeah.
And then the NHL now is at max capacity. It's the same level of athleticism and sport as the other big 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's caught up because it's the whole world's involved.
Mm-hmm.
What weigh in on that?
That's a great. That's tough. I mean, I don't know much specific about him, although I'll definitely reach out to him. But it will allude to what you kind of touched on in that Iron Curtain, and it honestly was extremely hard for those guys to leave the NHL or to leave Russia, the USSR, Soviet Union, to come to the NHL. There was a few that were able to defect and make it work, but it was very tough because not only did you have to worry about your own well-being, you also had to worry about the safety of your family. Of course, that's how that retribution happened in those type of things. I would like to just say this. I would have loved to have seen it more often, right? Like you alluded to, they did play some exhibition games against the NHL All-Stars. There was the big, 1972 Soviet Canada, series, which was really big in terms of that. But, I mean, you could talk about a lot of Russian players. I mean, Tretiak, the goaltender.
Mikhailov was there in 72,
yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, and like there's all these things of what if. I mean, I have stories of these guys playing games in North America and then defecting through hotels to be able to play on their NHL teams and stuff like that. So it was tough. In the perfect world, we would have loved to have seen that and certainly seen it a lot more often. And then we really, truly could see that true debate. But, Russia is a very cold country, much like Canada. So obviously you have longer seasons, especially back in the 60s and 70s when a lot of places didn't have artificial ice. You had to do natural, cold ice. So that's a very good thing. The biggest thing for me when we talk about the debate, and when we talked about it on baseball, when we talk about pitchers and eras and Babe Ruth and stuff, the biggest thing in hockey that's changed is goaltending. Goaltending from about the early, say 92, 93 on has completely evolved. Some for good. Goaltenders have just actually crafted their positions and stuff. The other side of it is their equipment is, ballooned. Like back in the late 90s and early 2000s, like the equipment was huge. They looked like monsters out there when like J.S. Jaguar was playing for the Mighty Ducks and he looked just huge. He just had to move around. So they had to restrict back. But there was just never any emphasis on goaltending. It was important, but the gear was your gear, and you stopped the pucks. Now it's like an athleticism. You should see these guys in the training. It's crazy.
Give us this 2 seconds. Gretzky, Ovechkin will eliminate the Russian. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go for Gretzky right now, but we will see.
Now I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
And I'm going to challenge the viewers.
Okay. This
You
is a
want to
good
know who
challenging
put
one.
emphasis on goaltending? You want to know who put emphasis on goaltending? I'm going back to the Iron Curtain.
Yep.
I have seen video. Literally, I've seen video. It's the old.
Oh yeah.
You can find it of Tretiak
Yeah.
training in Russia. This is
Insane.
from the 70s,
Insane.
and it was unbelievable what I watched.
Oh my God.
They're
Crazy.
throwing what are those racquetballs?
Yep.
And he's
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Tretiak.
This is
training.
This is a good one because, like I said, hockey has changed so much. I mean, there's diehards that are Gretzky and thinking like Ovechkin or Crosby in this era. I want to know. I really want to know from our younger viewers. Like, we have a huge following on TikTok and stuff like that. I want to hear from them, like, who they actually think is the GOAT, because I think that debate's gonna evolve here. And there's some like good young talented players, and McDavid and McKinnon and these guys. It's gonna be exciting to see for sure. So I'm waiting to see, what everybody else's opinion on. I know Spainer's given us a little history lesson on the USSR and all that stuff, but what is your GOAT of the NHL or hockey in general? And we had another great episode here on the Spainer and Riggs podcast. We're excited for next week. We got another more spring sports we're going to dive into. We obviously going to have some great interviews. We're going to have some great guests on here. And we also want to know, where do you want to see Spainer? He's eager to go check out all the Class B stuff's been gone, and now he's excited to check out new practice and new games. We want you hear from you where you want him to be. Make sure you check out on all our social media. Great stuff on TikTok and Facebook. This was a great episode here on the Spainer and Rig podcast, brought to you by the Dakota Network.